Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most massive structural shifts in modern history, the policy of globalization. But rather than just talking about it as some abstract textbook concept, we're going to look at it through the really fascinating lens of India's economic liberalization. Because when a country fundamentally rewires its economic structure, the ripples, well, they're felt around the entire world. So we are going to unpack exactly how specific national policy changes transformed a country into a crucial node in a truly interconnected global village. Let's get into it.
Okay, here's our quick roadmap for today. First, we'll define the core of globalization. Then we'll look at the 4 specific policy features that make it happen, check out the national ripple effect using India as our prime example, and finally, zoom way out to look at the massive global macro waves.
All right, Section 1. We hear the word thrown around all the time, but what does it actually mean when a nation decides to just open its doors to the rest of the world?
Well, at its core, globalization is simply the process of integrating a national economy with the rest of the world. Simple, right? But pay close attention to the rule of 3 here. This integration, it doesn't just happen by magic. It relies on 3 massive pillars: trade, capital flow, and technology. Basically, you need the free movement of goods, the free movement of money, and the free movement of ideas and innovation. When those 3 things lock into place, that is when true economic integration actually begins.
Moving on to part 2. You can't just declare that your country is globalized and call it a day, right? You actually have to engineer it. So let's look at the 4 concrete policy catalysts governments use to make it happen.
51 to 100%. Now, that is not just a random statistic. It represents an absolute seismic shift in foreign direct investment, or FDI. To modernize quickly, the government basically said, okay, we're relinquishing tight domestic control, and they started granting majority or even total foreign equity in massive core sectors like roads, banking, and aviation. It was a complete paradigm shift in how global capital was welcomed.
And the structural reforms, they definitely didn't stop at just investment. Barriers were being systematically dismantled across the board. First, the currency was unshackled, shifting away from fixed rates to a market-determined exchange rate for true currency convertibility. Then, aligning with WTO agreements, import liberalization gutted the old restrictive licensing systems, scrapped quantitative restrictions, and significantly lowered tariffs to really free up trade. And finally, to supercharge domestic industries, they set up automatic approvals for foreign technology agreements in high-priority sectors.
Okay, Section 3. You pull those 4 massive policy levers, what actually happens next? Let's zoom in on the immediate national reactions, the ripples, using India's post-1991 transformation as our perfect case study.
The immediate result is this massive two-way street. On the inflow side, multinational corporations absolutely flooded in, bringing huge waves of FDI directly into pharma, chemicals, and textiles. But honestly, the outflow side is just as fascinating. This wasn't merely about foreign companies taking over. Not at all. Domestic giants like the Tatas, Reliance, and Essers seized that exact same momentum to step onto the world stage, acquiring foreign companies and becoming global powerhouses in steel, cars, and IT.
And we literally cannot talk about this ripple effect without highlighting the absolute explosion of the IT and BPO sectors. By tearing down those barriers to technology and capital, incredibly skilled local professionals were suddenly providing direct, high-value services to customers all over the USA and Europe. It fundamentally rewired the entire global service economy. It basically proved that suddenly, geography was no longer a barrier to talent.
All of this built a really powerful domestic ecosystem. The arrival of those MNCs meant immediate access to highly advanced technology, which rapidly modernized local industry standards. And of course, that kind of modernization requires serious talent, which led to surging employment opportunities for skilled manpower and professionals. Plus, to house this booming ecosystem, special economic zones, or SEZs, popped up. These were purposely built with world-class infrastructure to attract foreign companies and keep that massive investment engine running hot.
All right, part 4. We've seen the mechanics, and we've seen how they transform a single nation. Now let's pan way out and look at the 8 massive global macro waves that hit when these forces collide all over the world.
So the first 4 of these macro effects are all about the mechanical and financial interlocking of our world. First, you get this incredible expansion of world trade and the free flow of goods. Then you see an influx of international capital flow that essentially builds a single worldwide financial market. Naturally, this breeds a very deep country interdependence, meaning what happens in one economy instantly impacts the others. Meanwhile, the global transfer of technology provides developing nations with the literal tools to radically boost productivity and raise living standards. The second half of these macro effects, well, they hit right at home. We're talking about the birth of a true worldwide product market, which completely exploded the variety of goods available to everyday consumers. But it wasn't just physical goods, right? A global mass media revolution meant information flow became instantaneous across borders. Ultimately, mixing this cocktail of advanced tech, global capital, and rapid data sparked unprecedented economic prosperity and huge growth opportunities throughout the developing world.
And that brings us to the eighth and honestly most profound effect, perfectly captured by this quote. Increase in cross-cultural contacts has made the dream of a global village more realistic. I mean, look beyond the tariffs, beyond the capital flows, and beyond the tech agreements. At the end of the day, economic integration brings people from completely different cultures together. It breaks down cultural barriers. And that is perhaps the most profoundly human result of this entire process.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive question. We have spent this explainer looking at the policy levers that built our heavily integrated, highly interdependent world. But as our economies, our mass media, and our cultures become so completely intertwined, how will this global village handle the next great shift in human history? Because when a new challenge or a massive new innovation arises tomorrow, it's not just going to hit one nation. It will instantly ripple across us all. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope this deeper look at the mechanics of globalization leaves you excited to explore even further.